everyone, welcome back for another Not Too Shabby Shop Design Team project. Today I'm sharing 3 cards using the January box of the month. I do have the 6x6 Me Plus You paper pad and the ephemera pieces. The cards that I'm designing today, you could certainly, instead of the ephemera pieces, substitute it for stamps. I just wanted to show you a few different layouts that you could use with pattern paper. I have some of my favorite pattern papers from this collection, and then of course this black gingham is a scrap piece of paper. I am going to be cutting 1/4 inch strips. I'm using the grid on my Tim Holtz Tonic Studio, so you can see that I just slide over the paper using those little squares on the left hand side, and that's going to help me get straight strips. I have planned on using the gingham twice, so I will repeat the black pattern from the gingham, but the other paper pieces that I'm cutting, I am going to use the front and the back side to get a little bit of variety in that pattern paper. I do want to mention that this is 6x6, as I said before, and when I'm cutting off this 1/2 inch of paper, it still leaves me with a 5.5 inch by 6 inch piece of pattern paper that I can use on another card design. So I would have another background that's full sized. I love that roses pattern paper. You're going to see that it really pops on this card when I add it later on. So I'm going to start trying to use my grids. I'm not going to get this perfectly straight because the pattern paper does have a sheen to it. It is a little bit slick, so I probably would have been able to keep it in place just a little bit better had I used double-sided tape with this instead of the wet glue, but it ends up working out. I'm adding my pieces left of center, and I love having that interest using the different pattern papers. They all obviously are in the same color family, so they are gonna match very nicely. So if you have a 6x6 pad and you have lots of scraps that are in it, this is a great way to use up some of those scraps. Once I get all of these aligned, I am going to trim off the edge, again using my guillotine trimmer. I have a 4.25 by 5.5 inch top folding card base. So this is going to be an A2 size card. In fact, all of my cards will be A2 size cards. Once I trim this off, I do have a scallop die from my stash. It's an old MFT one. I'm going to use that to cut out a layer for the circle that is going to hold my ephemera piece. So that will be the focal point of my card. I thought I would make different types of cards this time, so this is going to be a note card. I will come back after I finish with card number 2 and add the sentiment to this. So I've used the slate gray for that scallop, and then there's that pop. Don't you love that? It's just so pretty. It just pops so nice against the white background. So I cut a smaller circle using the red roses pattern paper, and then I used the ephemera piece. As you can see, that is a picture with some hearts on this, and of course this could be a cute little love note or a Valentine card for a friend, but I'm using this as a note card that I'll probably send out later on. So there is card number 1, other than the sentiment. On to card number 2. I have a piece of cardstock that I've cut down to 4 by 5.25. This is the white with the gray hearts on it. And so that you have a little bit of white on white there. And next I'm going to bring in a square, and I'm going to use that slate gray pattern paper again. So I'm trying to use up my scraps. I found the square that I thought fit nicely. The other ones seemed to be just a little bit too big, and I'm using that gingham paper again, the scraps, and I'm cutting this strip down to a 1/2 inch, and this is going to be where I place my sentiment. I wanted to add a little bit of lift to add some interest, so I'm adding some double-sided tape to the back of that square. Once I release the paper from the back of it, I am going to center it towards the top center of this card base. And I'm going to get it crooked as always. Finally, I'm going to be smart and bring in my T-square ruler just to straighten that out a little bit more. And then I'm going to add that strip more towards the bottom. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, that's not straight. Thank goodness this sticky tape allows me to lift it up, because the struggle is real for me getting things straight. So using my T-square ruler, look at how nice that came out. Now it's nice and straight. I have the heart that I've added the foam tape to the back of, and I'm going to remove this release paper. And once I do that, I'll glue down my gnomes. So I have both a boy and a girl gnome, and I thought I would add that little bit of heart, or that little heart, not little bit, that little heart to the center. And I tried to, there's red ones and there's gingham ones, but I thought that this cream one really was a nice contrast with the other pattern papers that I used. On to our sentiments. I'm starting with that first card again. I'm using the Just a Note stamp set, which again was part of the box of the month. I'm going to use some gray, I think it's called Metropolis from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm going to use that ink, which matches perfectly with the pattern paper that I used, and add that Just a Note. Now these would be a really cute set of note cards to give somebody. If you had a set of stamps or some ephemera in your stash that was really cute, these would make really nice note cards. Because of the white, I wanted to add a little bit more interest, so I cut the side of this card panel down to 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and then of course you can see that I did 4 1/4 by 5 1/4 inches, and you can see I used that slate gray cardstock, and that just gave me that little bit of gray on the left and the right side of the card. For card number 2, I'm using Catherine Pooler ink in Rock and Red and adding the sentiment that says Happy Valentine's Day. This came from, I think it's called Gnome Love. It's from the Gnome stamp set that was part of the box of the month. I trimmed down the sentiment so that it would fit in the center of that gingham. I added that foam tape to give it that lift that the square has. And that is going to be card number 2. There we go. Moving on to card number 3, I used a different piece of gray and white pattern paper. This one has larger hearts. I cut the piece down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Again, I'm adding those gingham strips, so I am cutting this in half right here. And I'm going to use this to flank this center piece of pattern paper that I have. Again, this was a scrap piece of pattern paper. Let me measure that real quick. So that measures, let me see here, that is about 1 1/2 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches tall. And I'm going to take those strips of gingham and I'm going to flank them on the left and the right side. And again, this is going to be a little bit center of left. And I'll glue that down, and then I'm going to use 3 different ephemera pieces that were, I thought, nice contrasts to this pattern paper. I'm going to start with one of the hearts that had red roses. I've added some foam tape to the back of the little mug that is filled with hearts. The mug is more of a cream color, so it's a little contrast to the white. And then I have this tag that says love, and I'm choosing to leave the inside blank. This is a top folding card. Here's a look at all 3 of my cards, and that's it for me today. If you like the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.